I was listening to a podcast the other day. I think it was Mark Bell's podcast. It's a great podcast about strength training. And these guys were talking about lifting weights. And they said, man, I remember being 19 years old and we could just do all this crazy athletic stuff. And I was like, wow, I don't remember that 19 years old. At 19 years old, I was an absolute wimp. I was a frail specimen of a person, man. I was sick. I was weak. I was like a skeleton. Had a body weight of about 100 pounds. I was bulking up from like 98 pounds, man. But I was frail. I couldn't even do a single push-up at 19 years old. In my early life, I had some health issues. I almost died of pneumonia at age 16, and I lost a massive amount of body weight. I atrophied quite a bit. At age 21, I ended up hospitalized for about almost 4 months. Had multiple surgeries on my intestines. I couldn't eat anything. At that point in my life, I was walking around about 200 pounds, but I dropped down to about 90 pounds, just frail, hospitalized. Man, it sucked. I was very near death. Getting to that base athletic form where I could just do simple things, like body weight exercises, like push-ups and pull-ups and body weight squats and all that. Man, that was a battle. That was an absolute battle. The first time I went to a weight room, I went with some friends. They're like, come lift weights with us. I couldn't push up a bar, the empty 20-kilo bar on the bench press. Before I went to the weight room with them, I said, guys, I'm super weak. I don't know how to do any of this. They're like, we'll help you, come on. So we put the empty bar on there, and they're thinking by super weak that I can't push up 3 or 4 plates on the bench press. Instead, I can't even push up the bar. And the looks on their faces were like, oh, wow. Wow. Yes, I was an inordinately weak young man. I didn't start experiencing real strength gains until my 30s, to be honest. And I didn't start feeling really strong till my 40s. Right now, age 44, it's the strongest I've ever been in my life. Now I can put up some respectable numbers, but back at age 19, man, that was when I hear guys talk like, man, remember when we were teenagers and we could lift these massive weights, and now we're in our 30s and we need TRT. It's like, oh, whoa. Is this backwards world? I don't know, man. I don't know. Something that held me back a lot as a younger man in terms of physical culture in weightlifting and martial arts, etc., was the internet. Voices on the internet. I started my YouTube channel about 16 years ago, and my intention in starting the YouTube channel was to practice speaking with people, to get some experience talking. Because that was another issue I struggled with. Crippling social anxiety. I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't talk to people. Couldn't formulate coherent sentences. It was rough, man. So I decided I'm going to talk about things that interest me. I'm going to make videos about things that interest me. And the thing that interested me the most was martial arts. That's what I did. And so I made some martial arts videos, put them up on the internet, didn't really expect anything. Suddenly I got a bunch of comments. You suck. You're the worst guy ever. Everything you're doing is wrong. Your form is wrong. Your posture is wrong. You have no footwork. Your footwork is wrong. What? Where did all this hate come from? I don't get it. But I started looking at some other martial arts videos, and I noticed the same thing. Every video was like this. No matter how good or how bad the videos were, there would be hundreds of comments from angry people on the internet saying everything you're doing is wrong. I looked at some strength training videos too, and I noticed it was the same thing. Everything you're doing is wrong. Your form is wrong. You will tear your rotator cuffs bench pressing like that. You'll tear up your knees squatting like that. And I started wondering, who's right here? Who's wrong? Because according to the people of the internet in the comment section, everybody's wrong. Everything you do is wrong. You can't be right. You can't win with these people. What's happening? This was a massive blow to my psyche at the time. Second guessing myself constantly. Everything I'm doing is wrong? Everything? Wow. That's a lot to take in, man. That's a lot to take in. I remember one day I got some constructive criticism, probably the first constructive martial arts criticism I got on the internet. I made a video about a triangle choke escape that I really liked. It seemed to be working out with me, with the people that I trained with at the time. And I made a video. This is how I escape a triangle choke. And I got a comment from Jeremy Horn. Multiple-time world champion, UFC champion, over 200 fights, Jeremy Horn. And he said, that's not a good triangle choke escape. If you do that against a guy at this level, that might work. If you do that against a guy at a higher level, this is what will happen. You should do this instead. And my gut-wrench reaction was, wait. It was different than what the other guys were saying. Everything you're doing is wrong. Instead, it was constructive criticism. This is why what you were doing will lead to this result. This is why what I'm saying will give you a better result. Fix it. So I let the anger simmer down a little bit. I went and tried out what he said. I realized he's right. How about that? This multiple-time world champion stud of a fighter giving me some advice on the internet. A little bit of tough love. He didn't word it super diplomatically. But he did give me constructive advice. He gave me probably the first online coaching I ever saw. And it worked, and it was much appreciated. So shout out to Jeremy Horn, awesome guy. But that started changing the way I thought about the internet. I started looking at these other guys, leaving these disparaging comments, and I sometimes found myself becoming one of them. Because when everybody's doing it, it starts becoming the norm of the culture. Like, take for example, that African tribe. I don't remember their name, but they put those lip plates in their lower lip, and yeah, they got like these big discs in their lips, and if you're not from that culture, probably looks super weird. And you're like, why would anybody ever do that? If you're from that culture, it's like, this is normal. We've done this for thousands of years. It's what people do. Why wouldn't you? If you don't, you're weird, man. But when everybody's being disparaging and contributing to the dumpster fire of the internet, the undefeated ninjas of the YouTube comment section, it's not helpful. I got a comment, I think it was 2 days ago, a series of comments from this guy who's left a lot of disparaging comments on my channel. I get these every single day, and I have every day for the last 16 years since I started my YouTube channel. And he said the typical, everything you're doing is wrong, everything, your footwork is wrong, your posture is wrong, your punching is wrong. Of course, he didn't tell me what was right. He just said everything you're doing is wrong. And I left him a reply. I don't usually reply to these guys, but I replied to him, and I basically said, I don't care. I don't care what you're saying, dude. I don't care. I know what I'm capable of. I know what my skill set is. I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. And they are not the issues you're bringing up. So the guy replies and he says something like, "How do you expect to improve if you don't listen to me? If you just brush me off, how do you expect to improve?" Well, there's this little thing called getting out there and training that I'm always telling people to do, that I'm always doing myself. Get out there and train. And when you do that, something magical happens. You are exposed to your weaknesses. Firsthand, live, in real time, in real life. And you figure stuff out. You figure out how to fix what's broken and not fix what's not. There's this idea in many facets of physical culture. I see it a lot in martial arts, probably the most in martial arts. This exclusivity. Like, you're not part of the club, man. You're not part of the club, and therefore everything you do and everything you say is wrong. Because you're wearing the wrong uniform, you have the wrong style, you have the wrong label. It's weird, and I hate it. It's stupid. Needs to stop. But it persists. This martial arts tribalism. It also exists in strength training, in powerlifting and weightlifting a little bit, but I notice those guys tend to be a little bit more generous and a little less tribalistic than their martial arts equivalents on the internet anyway. But I remember approaching strength training. Again, I came from this background of being an absolute weakling, just a shell of a man physically. And I wanted to get strong. And I felt like I don't belong. I'm not part of this tribe. I'm not part of this club. Ooh, everything I do is wrong, and I know it right away because I don't know anything. So I go in there, give it the old college try to get stronger. And I start watching all these videos on the internet, trying to learn how to do it the right way. I start reading all these books. I start studying. I go to college again to get another degree in fitness technology and exercise science. I become an actual educated expert on the topic of physical culture. And I realize something at this point in my life, where I've read hundreds of books on the subject, I've put in hundreds of hours of work on this subject. I've made myself physically stronger. I've consulted many experts on this subject. I've compared and contrasted every voice and every dissenting voice I can possibly find. And I learned something, that a huge percentage of the people out there telling you that everything is wrong in terms of strength training have no clue what they're talking about. It's bro science, man. Bro science. I've never seen a video from the knees over toes guy, but I've heard a lot of people talking about him. And I think part of the reason that his work, I don't know if he makes YouTube videos or what form of social media presence he has online, but that name, Knees Over Toes, I think that contributed to his success, specifically because the commonly accepted bro science for the longest time was don't track your knees over your toes when you do a squat. And if you know anything about proper squatting form, that's exactly what you should be doing most of the time, tracking the knees over the toes. And it's almost like a form of clickbait, because people have heard that so many times, just like people have heard deadlifts are bad for your back, squats are bad for your knees. No. Doing it wrong is bad for your back. Doing it wrong is bad for your knees. Doing it wrong is bad for you, generally speaking. But that implies that there's a right way and a wrong way, and that it's completely black and white. Form A is the only correct way. Form B is everything else. You must look exactly like this particular powerlifter, otherwise you're doing it wrong. If you do a study of strength athletes, you'll notice variations in the way they're doing stuff. And you'll also notice commonalities. When studying form, you want to focus on the commonalities rather than the variations from the commonalities, if you will. If you're looking for something that's going to work for you, that we can call technique. There were a few short video clips in a training montage in the video background of an audio podcast that I put up on YouTube. And I had a student who was preparing for a boxing match, his first boxing match. And he came from a karate taekwondo background. I think he was a brown belt in karate, black belt in taekwondo. And the first time I sparred with him, I noticed he didn't really understand boxing. His kicks were beautiful. He didn't know how to box. And so I told him, all right, every time we spar, we'll do a round of kickboxing, but for every round of kickboxing we do, we're also going to do another round of boxing right afterward. And I put up a clip of me holding some mitts for this guy, and we were working on a very specific footwork pattern. But it's like a 5-second clip. And our friend who left the disparaging, everything you're doing is wrong, remarks, oh man, he went to town on this clip. This clip is proof that you know absolutely nothing about boxing and you need to get educated and look at this. This guy absolutely sucks. Oh, you should have done this and you should have done that and you should have done the other. And I'm like, really? You are critiquing a beginner boxer because he's looking like a beginner boxer and you're yelling at me for it. He doesn't look like a high-level professional after one try. Therefore, everything you're doing is wrong. Look, man. How many WBA boxing champions have you trained? If that answer is 0, then maybe take a seat. Maybe calm down a little bit. Maybe listen more, project less. The Dunning-Kruger effect is powerful. It's powerful. How many people are willing to take issue and try to correct what isn't broken? Here's what would actually happen if we take this guy's approach with training a new boxer, a guy who's never done it before. Yeah, he's done karate, he's done taekwondo. That's not the same thing. He knows the forms, he knows the pretty kicks, he doesn't know how to box. And you hold pads for that guy for the first time, and he throws the jab, and it's coming from the hip like they teach in the karate forms. And you stop and say, you're doing everything wrong. Ah! And you spend an hour pontificating on that instead of showing him the right way to do it. Mitt holding is teaching. It's teaching. That's it. It's a teaching process. And there's this idea that people who don't know how to fight, and they definitely don't know how to teach, and they certainly don't know how to coach, but they have this idea, if I watch somebody doing mitt work, I'll know how good of a boxer they are. No, you're watching a student. You're watching a student learning something if you're watching mitt work being done the way it should be done. Did you go to school? Did you maybe do any worksheets at school? Maybe take a math class? And they give you a math worksheet. It's got like 20 problems on it. And you solve those 20 equations. Did your teacher hover over your shoulder while you're filling out answer number 1? And maybe there's a mistake with the arithmetic and they jump down your throat. You're doing it wrong. Number 1 is wrong. No. They allow you to fail. Sometimes. And afterwards they'll point it out. This was wrong. So let's make it right. Paralysis through analysis. This is a big problem a lot of would-be coaches have. I say would-be because they're not. If you paralyze yourself by over-analyzing everything that's wrong, you'll never get anywhere. Beginners do literally everything wrong. They do. It is not worth your time or theirs to point that out constantly. You'll never get anywhere. Beginners literally do everything wrong. So a much more effective way of coaching, of teaching, of instructing, and these are different things. They are. Than saying everything is wrong or this is wrong, do this instead, is give some cues. Take, for example, the knees over toes guy, who I never watched a video of his, but there's a cue in that name, knees over toes. It gives people some instruction. Do this. Not even do this instead of that, just do this. Seems to have worked out in his favor, giving a cue, a simple cue, as the name of his channel, as the name of his social media presence. How interesting, right? Notice his channel isn't, don't squat like this, squat by tracking your knees over your toes. Man, that's a mouthful. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's got time for that nonsense. Here's another problem with trying to teach or coach or instruct like that. Imagine you've got a fighter. He's in a fight, right? And when I coach fighters, or people who want to be fighters, I have to coach them to listen and to obey and to act to cues under duress while they are competing. Imagine for a minute, you have a cage fighter. He's in the cage. He's doing something that is not working out. Option A. Hey, buddy, you're doing it wrong. Do this instead. By the time it takes you to say that sentence, he's knocked out already. Do you see where I'm going with this? Your instruction has to be a cue that motivates action. Secondly, hey buddy, you're doing it wrong. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be told you're doing wrong. We will instantly reject that. You can have the noblest of intentions. You can have the most technical of advice, but if it starts out with everything you're doing is wrong, that will be the result. I wish I wish I could time travel back to the past and give my younger self some real cues. But then I would have missed out on the learning process that made me who I am today. People often ask me if I could go back to the past and give my former self some advice, what would it be? And I guess it would just be, don't listen. Don't listen to the dissenting voices of the internet. Go and study it out for yourself. How are you going to learn if you don't listen to those nincompoops? Learn correct principles and govern yourself, man. It's not that complicated. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.